Hello friends, welcome back. I am Jason and we've got an exciting topic today, and that is, what do you think is the most difficult place to survive in the world? What's the most difficult climate, most difficult terrain, most difficult environment on the face of the earth to survive in? Leave that in the comments section before we continue on. I will wait. All right, now that we've got that out of the way, let's continue. Now, the Earth can be quite inhospitable depending on where you are. There are some places that are significantly easier to survive in a survival scenario than others. Like, for example, places near the equator with warmer climates typically have warmer environments and typically have more food available, more fresh water perhaps available. There's a lot of things to consider. However, if you got dropped off in the depths of the Amazon rainforest, how long do you think you'd survive? With limited gear, limited equipment, and I know some of you in the comment section have already said, well, it depends. It depends on a lot of factors. Shut up. No, it doesn't. Just pick a place that's difficult to survive and go with it. What do I think the most difficult place in the world to survive is? I would lean towards perhaps just the open ocean. We were recently, me and my wife were watching The Heart of the Sea, the tale of Moby Dick and the great white whale that just bombarded the ship, sunk the ship, and left all of its occupants stranded, cast away, and just floating out there in the vast expanse of nothingness, surrounded by water that you can't drink, surrounded by creatures that want to eat you, bite you, sting you. The sun is just baking down upon you. Man, that'd be rough. The open ocean would be a pretty miserable place to be in a survival situation. That is for sure. Now, let's talk more terrestrial. Obviously, the open ocean, I think is the most difficult place to survive in the world, but that's just my opinion. Just because of the simple lack of resources. Yes, there's ways of going about it. There's ways of surviving. You could catch rainwater, perhaps, if you have the ability to do so, the equipment necessary to do so. You could catch fish and drink the fluids out of the fish and eat the fish to survive. Yes, of course, if you have the means of doing so, it's possible to survive in the open ocean. But let's talk something a little bit more terrestrial. Let's talk about maybe the Arctic, right? The Arctic is, if you're not used to the cold, like me, for example, I'm a Southerner. I've lived in the South my entire life. I have ventured out to various places, but I have spent very little time in extreme cold climates, like, where there's real snow, or I've never been in a place where you could dig a snow cave. Or at least I've never been in a place in the wintertime where you can dig a snow cave. Been to places where they get enough snow, but it wasn't available at the time. So that kind of survival, I'm talking extreme colds, like way below zero temperatures, 20, 30, 40 below zero. If you're not prepared, if you're not dressed appropriately, if you can't get a fire going, if you don't have a shelter, you're going to be in a bad spot. That cold, the pain of the cold, and just the fear that the cold invokes in a human being when they feel that icy cold wind biting through their body, biting through their clothes perhaps. Man, that's tough. That is tough. And freezing to death sucks. Man. Well, I take that back. I don't know. Hypothermia is bad. It's dangerous. Don't get me wrong. However, once you get past that numbness, you get past that painful sting of the icy cold, and it's already got its grasp, it's already sunk its claws into you. Once you get past that, everything's kind of numb, everything kind of slows down, everything gets calm, and the pain kind of goes away. I've had hypothermia before, and it's not fun, it's not pleasant, but it's not as painful and miserable as a lot of other ways to go, perhaps. It's a slow, sleepy way to go. It just makes you want to lay down, curl up in a ball, and fall asleep. So that's what makes it dangerous. Now let's talk about the desert. Perhaps a lot of you desert dwellers, you're gonna say, no man, the desert, come out to the, I don't know, the Sahara or the American Southwest and try to survive there. Yeah, it's a similar situation as the open ocean. I mean, there's a whole lot of nothingness a lot of times. I know there's definitely a lot of plants and animals and resources in a desert environment, depending on the desert you're in. Like the Sonoran Desert, for example, it's beautiful. The vast just differences in terrain and the number of plants and animals, and it's a beautiful place to go there. But however, water is still in short supply, and we all know the 3-day rule of water. And in a really hot environment, temperatures where I used to live in Southern California, we lived inland Southern California in the desert, and it got up to 120 degrees. I mean, and that's not even the hottest deserts that exist, and 120 is freaking hot. I mean, we were close to Death Valley, all things considered, not too far away from it. And those temperatures, again, without shelter from the sun, you are going to get cooked, and you're just going to. What happens is I've had heat exhaustion before. Never had heat stroke or anything like that, but I've had heat exhaustion, hypothermia. There we go, hyperthermia. And what happens is your heart rate elevates. It goes doof, 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 and I started to hear my heart rate in my head. I get in the shade, and then I get back in the sun, and as soon as I got into the sun, I'd feel my heartbeat in my head. There's a few times I've experienced this, when you've gotten just way too hot, and it just zaps all the energy out of your body for days afterwards. Even after you've recovered, and you're back on your feet, and you're hydrated again, that heat will just... Man, it wipes you out for days afterwards. It's pretty rough. At least that's my experience. So the heat in the desert, that is tough. And deserts are rough because it gets cold there too. You might have extreme highs in the day and then really low temperatures at night. So you could get hypothermia during the day and hyperthermia during the day and hypothermia at night, which is pretty dang miserable. And without water, like I said before, I've been in some deserts where there is no water. It does not exist. You will not find it. And if you find yourself stuck in this place and you do not have water, you will die. You could drink your urine, maybe once. And that might, depending on how you feel about that, you can let me know what you think about that in the comment section. But you might survive just a little longer. Not much. And that's going to be pretty much it. So, yeah, the desert's tough. The desert is tough. What about high altitude Alpine regions? There's some altitudes, like let's talk about Everest extremes, right? Human beings can't survive on Everest. What is it, 28,000 feet, 29,000 feet, something like that? That's where huge jet airliners are, 30,000 feet up there. Your human body cannot survive there. It's just the oxygen deprivation, fluid buildup in your lungs. It's bad. You're going to die if you stay in that place for too long. So maybe that's the worst. Maybe that's the most difficult place to survive, is at extreme altitudes, because you won't last long there at all without some oxygen. Human beings just aren't able to survive in that environment. But let's come down just a little bit. Let's be a little bit more realistic. Let's talk about, high altitude Alpine regions, maybe just above the tree lines, where there's enough oxygen. You're going to be okay. You're not going to die immediately. But the weather is just, I've seen it snow in the summer. I've seen it snow in the summertime at some of these really high above the tree line locations. And that's just crazy. It might be 25 degrees, 30 degrees outside in the middle of the summer. You go down to the bottom of the mountain and it's back to 75 or whatever, 80 degrees, which is crazy. So the extreme temperature fluctuations in some of these mountain regions are tough. Yeah, there might be water to drink, and there might be some resources. You might be able to hike down to the tree line and be able to build yourself some sort of shelter and stuff, but there's not a whole lot of animals. Hunting is limited. Not a whole lot of animals at these high elevations, and these animals they're few and far between. Vast distances you might have to travel to get to them, and without a rifle of some sort, that'd be tough. Yeah, that's a tough place to go. Let's see, what else? Jungles, I think we mentioned jungles before. While the weather is warm in hypothermia is unlikely in these, equatorial regions of the Earth, these tropical regions of the Earth. It is a pretty tough place to survive. While it's definitely possible, people have done it for millennia, of course, since the beginning. It's still a difficult place to survive if you don't know what you're doing. You could get everything from trench foot. I've seen guys that have been afraid to take their boots off for days at a time because they were afraid of getting stung or poked or stabbed or bit or whatever. They didn't take their boots off, but their feet were soaking wet, and it looked like their skin was just trying to eat itself. It was trying to eat the toes, and white and pasty and just peeling off and flaking off. And if you let that go for too long, you'll get infections. You'll get bleeding sores, open wounds on your feet, and you'll get infections. And then without some sort of antibiotic, you will just succumb to those infections. And that, my friends, might be one of the worst ways to go, dying of an infection. Ugh. That'd be tough. I've had some bad infections before. I got stung on my foot by a stingray in the ocean in a tropical environment. Got stung twice, 2 different occasions, stung by stingrays, which is absolutely terrible. I do not recommend it. It was horrible. But one of those stings got infected pretty badly, and it swelled up, and my foot looked like it was trying to eat my toes. It was pretty miserable, pretty dang bad. And without antibiotics, I started getting red streaks going up my foot, up my leg, and without antibiotics, without some sort of way to treat that, I would have died or lost my leg or both. so we might have had to amputate the old school way. And so if you were in a survival situation, let's say you were in a survival situation by yourself on one of these tropical islands, that's what a lot of people think about, the castaway, right? The castaway situation where you're out there and you're surrounded by resources, and you've got coconuts and fresh water, and you've got things to build palm fronds, which are amazing at building shelters, and you got all the things that might wash up onto shore like nets and fishing line and all the stuff, all the refuse that washes up onto shores that you could potentially use. But all it takes is one sting from one thing in the ocean where everything wants to sting you or bite you or eat you or drown you. That's all it takes, and then you're done. Ugh, man. The world wants to kill us. No, I take that back. The world doesn't want to kill us. The world is oblivious to us. The nature it does what it does, regardless of whether we're there or not. And we need to make the best use of what God has given us, our brains. We need to make the best use of our brains and our opposable thumbs to survive in such really, really difficult places that the world has to offer. Anyway, I'd love to hear what you guys think about this in the comment section. Please chime in. If you're not one of the people that usually comments, make an exception this time and let me know what you think. Until next time, friends, what's the worst that could happen? Let's just go on 3.